Hello coaches, Coach Colin back here to give you some tips on managing a game day environment. First tip is to have an attendance policy. Team meetings before the season begin or before your first game are a great forum for this, but using the Playmetrics apps is really easy for parents to mark attendance and just setting that expectation early, knowing how many players you have Tuesday or Wednesday of each week, so you know if you need to ask for guest players. Hopefully that shouldn't be the case for many, if any, teams, but that will get you a long ways on game day. Next are warm-ups. I'm a personal believer that warm-ups are pretty overrated. They certainly have their utility, but I know a kinesiologist in one of my U.S. Soccer Federation coaching licensing courses told us that prepubescent athletes can't even really benefit from stretching, for instance. So the degree to which you utilize warm-ups is up to you, but I like to have something that just gets players mentally into the game. So personally for me, I have a set warm-up that we repeat with my teams each week that has a passing and stretching pattern we go through. Of course, I have teenage athletes, so again, it's a little bit different if I'm talking to U19 coaches versus U8 coaches. U8 coaches don't necessarily need warm-ups as much as they just need everyone there on time and organized and ready to go. U19 coaches might consider some kind of a passing warm-up into some kind of a possession game, maybe something going to goal. For coaches who do have a warm-up plan, don't neglect your goalkeepers. It's good to have them either working with another goalkeeper, working with a teammate on the side on a goalkeeper-specific warm-up where they could be getting work on volleys against them, shots, bounces, etc. One of the biggest tips I have is to talk to the other coach and the refs before the game. Introduce yourself, make yourself human. We all want to win, right? That's just human nature, but that's not the ultimate objective in youth soccer. So making sure that we humanize ourselves with the other coach, we talk through any challenges we anticipate we might have before a game, whether that be weather or whether that be, hey, we've been struggling lately, or we've been scoring a lot of goals lately, or I'm working with this player on this thing, whatever it may be. Good to have these conversations before the game so coaches can then actively manage throughout the game and be on an equal understanding with each other. Next tip is to coach through the game of soccer. Games are a great opportunity to coach. It's how we coach really that matters. So if you are shouting out 2-sentence instructions to your players on the field, probably not effective coaching. If we can think about how we reduce that to 1 sentence and then 3 words and then 1 word, then we're coaching. That's real coaching at that point. So making sure that our coaching points are precise to players on the field, but also that we're engaging the players who are off the field. So our substitutes should be benefiting from our coaching too. Those are the players you can give 2 or 3 sentence instructions to or break out a tactics board with if you so choose during a game. But players on the field shouldn't be joystick to the extent that they're hearing 4, 5, 6 sentences from a coach. They're not really hearing that, right? Especially when they're competing with the volume from the other side of parents who are cheering them on. So making sure that our coaching points are clear and precise and players understand exactly what to do on that instruction is very important during game days. Next tip is to set the example for your sideline. So a lot matters, right, to parents and how they observe a coach. Our body language matters. Our actual language matters, certainly. But we set the standard for how parents react. Usually parents will take their cues from a coaching sideline. So it is totally fine to react to what happens in a game. Whether it's a hard challenge, a call we disagree with from a referee, it's okay to react. It's the next part that gets us in trouble usually. So if we think that it was our throw-in and you are like, that part's okay. That's human nature to react. I'm not mad at that. It's the next part that we want to avoid. You got to be kidding me, ref. Yeah, we're not doing that, obviously. Or obviously just continuing to harp on that one moment. We react in the moment. That's human nature. And then we move on and we coach our teams to the earlier point. We actually want to make sure that we are focusing on that and we're not coaching the refs, we're coaching our players on the team. Our parents will definitely take our cues from those behaviors. And we could also react to positive moments. We should be reacting to positive moments, infinitely more than negative moments. So reacting when someone does find the right pass, when we do switch out to the wide channel, when we do win our 1v1s, that should generate a positive reaction from coaches, and parents should take their cues from that as well. So the more we can encourage our sidelines through our own behavior and then through talking with parents to be okay with their initial reactions, but not carry on with that, the better we'll be in managing our game day environment. The next tip is to have a plan for managing the game day environment when we anticipate that it could become a little bit unbalanced. So we all want to win, but conversely, it's not fun to lose. No one shows up wanting to lose a soccer game. We're going to. That's part of it. Everyone's going to lose. I've lost plenty of games in my 15-year career. But making sure that if we anticipate a game is going to become unbalanced either way, that we have a plan for managing so we don't make the experience miserable for any player on the field. Because ultimately, we're responsible for every player on the field, whether they're on our team or not. The experience that we create and as opposing coach will directly influence whether they want to return to the next practice game, etc. So we want to manage a positive environment. So if we're a team that anticipates scoring a lot of goals and maybe getting up early against another team, let's be thinking proactively about challenges. For U8 teams, great to have an alternate scoring system. So players understand goals, great, but I would keep a separate scrap of paper on hand and give a player a point every time they attempt a skill move. So scissors are a point just as much as getting a goal is a point. You'll be shocked by the end of the season if you keep an alternate scoring system, how technically proficient your players will become, and also how much players will learn that it's not just scoring goals that we celebrate, but it's our technical excellence on the field. So that's a great way to maybe encourage, hey, we have to get 5 scissors skill points before we score a goal. That works great for U8. Now, obviously, that works less well for U12, U14, U19. So at those ages, it's just having a plan for if we get up by 5 or 6 goals. Obviously, we're honoring the power play rule that's in the game already, but we can have a conversation with the coach and refs before the game, and if we need to adjust, or we put 2 players on for one team, that's okay if we agree to it before the game. I would more so challenge coaches to think about how we can make our scoring more challenging at those points. So anytime my team's up by 5 or 6 goals, certainly my U17s this last season had some games that got out of hand where we were really up ahead early. It becomes a challenge. Okay, for our 5th goal, we have to score on our first contact on the ball. So it has to be a first time finish. 6th goal has to be first time out of the air. And you'll be surprised at Rec Plus, or maybe not, how many players will really struggle to finish first time out of the air. So that's a great challenge. Maybe it's a shot outside the box. The one thing we want to avoid generally when we're coming up with these scoring challenges is the old way of thinking of we'll put our defenders in the attack and our attackers in the back line. First of all, it sends mixed messages. Everyone has attacking defensive responsibilities. Everyone has defensive responsibilities. So I'm not a huge fan of that personally. But also, if a team is really down and they're quitting, well, guess what? That center back's probably going to have an easy time scoring. And if they don't have any challenges or limits on them, then really, I mean, we're just setting it up for further failure for our opponent. So thinking about some of the restrictions, I'm happy to work with coaches on that. Look, we've got to a point, I know with my U17s last season, where we just had some kind of an instruction we gave that wasn't overly obvious on the field, and we just went to possession toward the end of the game and saw how many times we could recycle back to our keeper, back out the other side, and repeat that because that was going to be more beneficial for us against a stronger opponent. And then finally, practicing good sportsmanship and stewardship. This might seem obvious, but there's a few things coaches might consider that they haven't previously. The first that I'd like to normalize is having teams, whether they win or lose, go across the field and applaud their parents for showing up, for getting them to the game. It's really important that we honor the efforts of our parents and families to get players to and from games. You know this perfectly well as coaches, many of whom who have children on these teams, but it's also, I think, important to acknowledge our parents. So that's something we do on the travel side. I would love to normalize in Rec Plus. Second, when it comes to handshakes, handshake lines are traditional. There's nothing wrong with them. I prefer doing handshakes on the field personally as the game ends. It allows me to go corral any players I feel like might be a bit hot-headed. I've had a few games like that where I didn't want certain players going through the handshake line because I knew their sportsmanship might be at risk, or they might be at risk of saying or doing something to an opponent. So that's a good way to manage with older players. Younger players, handshake lines are more than fine, of course. And my final challenge for game days is, can we keep every player wanting to return to the next event, whether that's a practice, the next game, etc. So can we find something positive to leave with every single player before they leave the field? No matter how the game went, no matter how their individual game went, we should point out a positive in their game and leave them feeling excited, like they contributed, like they did something. That impression means a lot to players and keeps them wanting to return, which ultimately is our job as coaches.